looking at the warm-up, guys, we're gonna kick things off with 2 minutes of cardio of your choice. So this is your chance to get a little bit creative and go your own way with this one. Pick what you want to. If you want to follow along with what we're doing, we're basically gonna go between 30 skips, so just regular single unders. That's gonna get partnered up with 15 mountain climbers. We're actually doing 2 drills here, and we're just gonna go back and forth. Because it is 2 minutes, it's nice to have a little bit of a break up with that. So you guys can pick what you want. You can do 1 movement, 2 movements, I don't mind. Once we clear that 2 minute block, we're gonna go into a 3 minute AMRAP. So we're doing as many rounds as we can fit in of 10 dumbbell suitcase lunges. So that is stepping knee to ground. We then go into 10 curl to press. Okay, so going from arms down to arms up overhead. And then we're gonna move into 10 up downs. So jumping the legs out, jumping in, and standing nice and tall. Okay, so that's gonna be our warm up. Are you good to go, Em? Yep. All right, so we are starting the timer in 10 seconds. So 2 minutes of cardio to open things up. And we're going in 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So 30 skips, and then we're going into 15 mountain climbers. So just allowing that body that time to just kind of grease the groove a little bit, get the engine fired up, get your brain ticking as well. If you've been doing some work on the computer or thinking about other things, it's about giving your body time to start getting into that exercise mode and thinking about moving your body correctly, getting some good body awareness of where we're doing things and where our limbs are, how our core is activated, all of those things. So if you're doing the same movements as us, guys, with the single unders, we're just thinking about keeping the feet close and just rebounding off the balls of the feet, so that forefoot, the heels really shouldn't hit the ground at all. And just think about trying to tie those elbows in nice and close. It really just becomes a nice little whip through the wrists. Once we hit 30, we're gonna go back onto those mountain climbers for 15. So this is push-up position, so nice active shoulders, and we've got one leg out the back whilst the other leg tucks up to about chest or sort of torso height, and just running those legs back and forth. As you move through this 2 minute block, like we're 1 minute 6 into it now, we should be starting to slowly accelerate the speed a little bit, just gradually. Taking that first minute just to fire the engine up, and now we're starting to build into some intensity. It's always good to kind of ramp things up to sort of spike the engine a bit before we get into the build and the move sections. What you don't want to have is to be getting halfway through the build section and feeling like you're still kind of warming up. So 30 seconds to go. Last 15. All right, so we're gonna move to that 3 minute section now. So dumbbell suitcase lunge. So with this one, nice long step out in front, or you can step behind you if you want to, it doesn't matter too much. We're thinking about nice upright posture, and as the name suggests, dumbbells like we've got suitcases, so they're just gonna be hanging by our sides, staying as close to our hips as we can. We don't wanna let them swing out in front or anything like that. So 10 of those. Once we finish 10, we're gonna go to curl to press for 10. Okay, so from there. So this is gonna have a similar sort of look to like a clean and press, but the difference is it's a little bit more isolated. So where we would normally kind of hinge and shrug and use all that momentum, this now becomes a little bit more strict. So it's a bicep curl up to the shoulder and then a strict press to overhead. So you can see the rest of her body staying very still. She's being nice and sort of locked in through that midsection there. And in that top position, she's getting that head through, so good strong lockout. And once we get to 10 on this, we're gonna go into 10 up downs. Okay, so we're jumping the feet out into that push-up position, so kind of a similar sort of setup to what we did with the mountain climbs before, and the difference is now that both legs are gonna move together, but we still have those nice active shoulders, nice tight midsection, so we're not letting those hips sort of drop or sag through. And it's a nice spring back in again. She's not stalling at the back there or waiting there. She's actually gonna just spring back. 90 more seconds. All right, so back into the lunges. Now guys, if you're doing this and you happen to just have like one kettlebell or one dumbbell, that's okay. Just have it in one hand for 5 of the reps and then switch sides for the other 5. That way we can even it up a little bit. So this will involve a level of kind of activity at the shoulders and the lats to hold those dumbbells in place. You don't want to have them just go loose and start swinging around. So curl to press again. As we move through that overhead piece, hopefully you're working with something light as we're just warming up. But if you do find yourself kind of leaning back, if it's getting kind of challenging, you're starting to arch that back, just re-engage that midsection. Make sure that we're staying nice and upright through that torso. We don't want those hips kind of pitching forward and losing that activation through the midsection there. Okay, I've got about 30 more seconds. All right, so I'm gonna hit those up downs again. Fifteen more seconds. Three, two, one, and done. All right, so that is the warm-ups. Have a little bit of a chill out, grab some water, and then we're gonna have a look at the move section next. All right, guys, so we're gonna check out the move section now. We're gonna be looking at 4 sets. Now, this one is a little bit of kind of interval style. We're gonna have an interval timer running here, so a little bit of work to rest ratio we're gonna deal with. What we'll see in the work phase is 1 minute of cardio of your choice. So you can pick whatever you want. You can do what you did in the warm-up, do something different, I don't mind. What we're gonna do is a low box jump over. So we've got a small box, and she's just gonna be going over the top, back and forth, nice and continuous. You guys can do things like running high knees, jumping jacks, skipping, anything nice and simple like that you can move through the whole minute. The second minute is gonna be a devil's press. So with this one, what we see is dumbbells on the ground. She's gonna move through a dumbbell burpee, and then she's gonna roll up to a ground to overhead. And that can be either a muscle snatch like she just did then, or a clean and press. So up to shoulder and then up to overhead, and we'll do that for the minute. Now, once those 2 working minutes are done, we have a 30-second rest, and then we cycle through. So it'll be 4 sets in total. Good to go? Yep. All right, starting in 10. So we are a minute on cardio of your choice, guys. Going in 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So you'll notice we've deliberately picked quite a small box for this one. So haven't gone the usual 20 or 24 inch, the big box. We want something small so we can keep moving through this really continuously. We don't want it set so difficult that at any point we have to actually stop. We know because of this interval setting that we're gonna get a 30-second break in a little bit. So we wanna make sure that this is set at the level that it's gonna be continuous for 60 seconds. I'm just going back and forth. So as she does these jumps, when she lands on the box, there's just this slight moment of a little pivot. So she's actually turning to face in before she even hits the ground. And that way, as that second foot touches down, she's ready to hit the next jump. And when she actually lands on the box, guys, the knees are nice and open. It'll be a little hard to see from that angle, but knees are open, feet are nice and separated. So almost like a squat kind of a stance. Okay, and 3, 2, 1, and going into the devil's press. So this is the dumbbell burpee into ground to overhead. So as we move through this one, guys, the most important thing as far as your safety goes is the bit right through the middle there that she just did, where she goes from the burpee into the ground to overhead. So right here, she takes that moment just to flatten her spine out, right? She's not pulling from a rounded back position. We know we don't do that with heavy deadlifts. We're certainly not going to do it here either. So as she jumps those feet in, she just takes a moment, gets everything nice and extended, nice and engaged through that midsection to support it, and then she pulls those dumbbells off the ground. So make sure you're doing that. Don't rush so quickly that you're gonna pull from that curved position. So we've got about 15 more seconds before we hit that 30-second break. And resting. Okay, so 30 seconds to chill out here, just having a little bit of a move around. We've got 3 more sets of that to get through. So these rests will go by pretty quick, guys, so I'd have your towel and drink bottle fairly close by so you don't have to go wandering off for it. All right, 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1, and back on the minute of cardio of your choice. So you'll notice with this M sort of jumping to try and land right in the middle of the box. Sometimes when people do box jumps, they have this tendency to land with their heels kind of hanging off the edge. It's obviously going to be better in general to land in the middle so you get that heel purchase, but it's going to be easier for her to do that little pivot step and get over to the other side if we're closer to the other side. And she always just got the eyes just slightly cast down, just keeping that box in her kind of peripheral view, just so she knows that height. Obviously fatigue is going to start to creep in more and more. You don't want those legs to get low and lazy and start to trip the box, so just keeping an eye on that. Okay, we'll start getting ready for the devil's press. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So through the bottom section of this devil press, guys, that dumbbell burpee does not need to be a strict push-up. So if you're someone at home going, oh, I don't have push-ups, that's okay, you don't need to have them. What we want to see is maintaining a little bit of tension through here so we're controlled, but you can actually kind of roll it flat to the ground. You'll notice that when M does this, the feet will hit the ground, then the knees will hit the ground, then the hips, then the torso. So we kind of roll down and then roll back up again, and then we're moving into that ground overhead. So 30 more seconds. You can see the top of that, she's making a real effort to get that head through, get nice full lockout at the top, and then just guiding them back down. 15 seconds. Three, 2, 1, and resting. All right, so past halfway now, guys. We've got 2 rounds to go. So just taking that short 30-second breather, get some water in, and we'll get ready for round 3. Ten seconds. Ready and go for it. So this is round number 3 now. So as I said at the start, guys, you don't have to do exactly what we're doing here. You can pick your own different type of cardio. You might not have access to a box, which is totally fine. So as I said, things like jumping jacks, mountain climbers, running high knees, running butt kicks. If you have a skipping rope, do some skipping, that sort of thing. Just looking for stuff that's really going to prop the heart rate up. So don't pick something like say like a heavy deadlift or a heavy snatch or something like that. We don't want things that are going to stop us in our tracks. This is all about elevating that heart rate and continuous work, yeah? Okay, about 20 more seconds to go. So you still got that nice open knee position. Feet are still landing at about shoulder width. Just keeping everything in check even as that fatigue creeps in. Last 10 seconds. All right, ready and go for it. So devil's presses now. So we talked about the burpee on the last round, guys. Let's have a look at the ground to overhead. We want to make sure that we've got that back nice and straight, and then it's a real aggressive extension from the hips and the legs. So they should do 80% of the work, even 90% of the work. The arms really are just going to follow those dumbbells up and guide them into that last press position. So really think about hamstrings, quads, glutes, everything like that, driving up nice and tall. Get as much momentum upwards on those dumbbells as you can. One thing that's important to note is when she comes up off the ground, she's actually going to just swing them back through her legs, almost like a kettlebell swing, and then that'll pull straight through to the top. So there's that swing back, and then she drives through. Good, 10 more seconds. And resting. All right, so we've got 1 round to go, so 30-second break, and then we're going to push into that last one. Okay, 10 seconds. Three, 2, 1, and go for it. And one of the things you can do if you are a fairly experienced athlete, you've done box jumps before, you've done these box overs, you're fairly confident with yourself around that, can actually do more of like a lateral box jump. So if you want to try that M going side on, okay, we can see that little rebound, okay. Definitely not one if you're sort of new to this. You want to make sure that you're a reasonably seasoned athlete for that one because it is very explosive. It does take a lot of balance and coordination, but for those of you out there who've done this quite a bit, that can accelerate the intensity and the score as well. 20 more seconds. This way that M's doing it now where it's a little bit more kind of one at a time is definitely more appropriate if you're sort of just getting into this, or if you feel like your form starts to waver quite a bit under fatigue. You want to make sure that you're just addressing one jump at a time. Okay, 3, 2, 1, and going into the last lot of devil presses. So right now is when your heart rate's going to be jumping real high, guys. This is where the mind can get a little bit fuzzy. You can start to miss some of those smaller details of your movements. So keep checking in. Am I keeping a level of tension through my midsection as I go through the burpee? Am I straightening my back as I pull off the ground? Am I getting a really nice finish at the top there? Is my head popping through? So keep checking that out as you go. We've got about 30 seconds left to go to finish. Nice work, I'm almost there. 10 seconds. And time. All right, so that is the move section done, guys. Have a little bit of a chill, get some water in. We've got a finisher coming up next. Okay, so now we're going to move into our finisher, and this is going to be a bit of work on direct arm work. So what we're going to be doing is what's called a gun hold. So what that will look like is this. Okay, arms at 90 degrees, holding a weight out in front of ourselves. We're going to do this for 5 sets of 40 seconds on and 20 seconds off. So fairly simple. Make sure you've got an appropriate weight for this one. If you haven't done it before, you might need to do a little bit of adjusting from round to round. Try to go for something that you can hold the full 40 seconds if you can. Good to go? Yep. All right, so starting in 10 seconds. So this is a static hold, guys. We're going to go for as much stillness as we can. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So at the beginning, guys, this will feel not too bad, but it will escalate fairly quickly. It'll build up quite a bit of a burn through your biceps and your forearms and your grip and everything like that. So key things we want to see is the body nice and upright, nice and locked out. So similar kind of position to when we do things like strict press and stuff like that. The big one's going to be posture, right? We're thinking about shoulders set back and down. And don't be tempted to start kind of creeping the shoulders forward and kind of collapsing that chest down. 10 more seconds. And resting, so dumbbell down. Definitely give those arms a good shake off in between rounds because the lactic acid is going to come on thick and fast. So just a bit of movement there. 10 seconds. Got 4 more rounds to go. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So as far as the actual arm bend, guys, goes, we're going to make sure that we stay at 90 degrees, right? So we're nice and square at the elbow. As you get tired, your arms are either going to want to drop down. This is usually where that shoulder drawing kind of comes on, that shoulders will pull forward, or you'll actually start to pull up a little higher to try and find an easier spot. So keep checking that in. You can actually use kind of a reference point of like the bottom of your sternum. That's kind of the line you want to hover around. And make sure you don't move anywhere from there. 10 seconds. 3, 2, 1, and resting. So that's 2 rounds down. We've got 3 to go. So if you're doing this and you feel like you're really battling with it already, you may need to go something slightly lighter. Remember, the priority is to try and get to the full 40 seconds rather than going something really heavy and having to break it up a lot. 3, 2, 1, and go. Now another part of the challenge of this is the fact that we have a weight that is out away from the body. It's not miles away, but it is out in front of us. So there is going to be a degree of like midsection, glute, hip kind of involvement where we're trying to lock that in and counter against that weight being out away from us. So just make sure you're nice and strong through there. It's almost like a standing plank kind of a deal. Can do this with 2 dumbbells if you're wanting to, or whatever you have access at home to, you know, kettlebell or weighted backpack, that's fine. 5 seconds. And resting, so that's 3 down, last 2 to finish off. Three, 2, 1, and go for it. So as we enter the 4th and then the 5th round as well, that fatigue's going to start to creep in. The forearms are going to start to burn quite a bit, so just make sure you've got a good safe grip on it. Check in the shoulder blades are still where we want them to be, right? That's one of those ones that can kind of creep in without you knowing, so set them back and down, nice high proud chest, and then just keeping the elbows in nice and tight as well. 10 seconds. And resting. All right, so that's 4 down. We should have 1 last one to go. All right, 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So final hold on this one, guys. Hopefully by now you've got the weight set at a difficulty level that is, you're just able to get the 40 seconds out, really burning those arms. So a really strong challenge, but getting right on that time frame that we want. Hopefully you haven't gone too heavy where you're bombing out halfway through. So last 20 seconds. Keep active in that midsection. Make sure we're not starting to lean back or anything like that to try and cheat our way through it. 10 seconds left. And time. All right, so that is our finisher, guys. We're going to move to a bit of cool down work in a moment. Okay, so now that the workout's done, guys, we're going to move through a little bit of mobility to finish off. Now, we'll just be kind of showing you the movements just a round on each, but if you have more time, guys, do a few rounds of what we're about to go through. So first drill we're going to do is a tabletop. So we're basically going to set up kind of like a crab walk position. Notice Em's got her fingers pointed to the back there. And what she's going to do for the next minute on the timer is she's going to bridge her hips up as high as she can, pause for a moment there, and then lower it back down again. And she's just going to kind of go back and forth through that. So kind of like a glute bridge, but we're putting the emphasis on the sort of chest, shoulder, bicep region through that upper body. At the top, when she comes up, if she wants to, she can kind of even push forward just slightly if those arms aren't too tight, and then back and then down again. You can kind of go where you feel like you need to take the stretch. And as far as like if the fingers pointing back feels too aggressive on the stretch, turn them out, turn them forward, play around with that and find a level that is going to match where you're at. So challenging the comfort, but getting the stretch. And we don't want to feel like it's agonizing. It should be uncomfortable, but not agonizing. Okay, so just driving it. We're essentially trying to get the hips high as the shoulders and the knees, so it creates that tabletop position. All right, so that's our first drill. The other one we're going to do is a butterfly forward fold. So we get that name from the knees being butterflied out. Okay, from there, she's going to grab onto her toes and then she's going to draw down. So again, we'll go 1 minute on this one. And you can approach this 2 ways, right? We can go more of like a static stretch. So she's going to hold on and just draw down and stay there. She can even kind of drop the head down if she wants to and really round that back off. Okay, or she can approach this as a little bit more of like a dynamic stretch. She's going to kind of move in and out of it. So she would sit up tall, take a nice big breath in, exhale and pull down, maybe go about a 3-second hold at the bottom there. And then she'll come back up again. And we kind of almost like floss through the hips and the low back. If you have the back kind of rounded as Emily's going with there, that's a little bit more stretch on the low back. If you can keep the back a bit straighter and kind of pivot forward at the hips, you'll find it'll go a little more kind of glutes, almost into hamstrings a little bit as well. You'll find that one won't be as easy to get as far forward, which is okay. You can see there she's a little bit more tall through that back. That's kind of a different feel to it. All right, so those are our 2 drills, guys. As I said, if you have time to do a few more rounds of that, extend that mobility session, loosen the body up, do so. But otherwise, we will catch you next time. That was your MOV+ workout.